Sir, we are privileged to have our next speaker, Dr. Pramod Ingle, Academic Dean, Professor and Head Biochemistry, LTM Medical College and LTMG Hospital, Mumbai. He is professor and head of the biochemistry department, and also he is lab director general Diagnostics International Private Limited, Navi Mumbai. He is in IFCC committee member of International Task Force on Ethics, immediate past president of MB, member of Accreditation Committee of NABL India, lead and technical assessor of NABL India, and he is recognized UG and PG and PhD teacher, more than 25 years of teaching experience, his special interest in quality assurance in clinical biochemistry laboratory, lab accreditations, newborn screening, and metabolomics. So thank you, sir, for agreeing our next speaker and this panelist. So he will talk on NABL preparedness in biochemistry, assessor perspective and lead assessor's overview, because I have seen sir as an assessor, and many a times I was there with sir as sir was lead assessor. So I saw how thorough and how as a lead assessor, to have him as a lead assessor is a very great learning experience. So sir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Bernali, and thank you, Kao, for giving me this opportunity. The topic that has been given to me is NABL preparedness, biochemistry assessor and lead assessors overview. So maybe I'll have to touch upon both the quality management system as well as the technical components. Fitting it into 20 minutes is a difficult job, but I'll try to do it. Now, it is presumed that at this point of time, when I'm thinking about NABL preparedness, it is presumed that the lab which is going for NABL accreditation is well aware of what documentations are required, what is ISO 15189-2012 document, NABL 112, relevant 111, NABL documents, and so on and so forth. Now, when the assessment team comes to a laboratory for assessment, it is basically of two components. One is the documentation and the records, and the second is technical competence. And so the documents become a very, very vital component, the most important component of any assessment system. And it is said time and again that lab has to document, because whatever is documented, it is presumed that is done, or whatever is done has to be documented. So the lab which is going for NABL has to ensure that they have documented every single process. Although in ISO 15189-2012 document, there could be around 26 to 28 required procedures, but we can go beyond that and ensure that each and every process, right from pre-analytics, right from quality management system to release of report and post-release of report, everything needs to be documented. And when you document, it is important that you document what you actually practice. Please do not let someone write SOPs and QSPs for you. Do not copy SOPs and QSPs from someone else. Your documentation can be a very, very simple documentation. It can go in the form of flowchart, how the events occur in the laboratory. But it should be the replication of exactly what you do in the laboratory. Creating documentation is one of the most important components. And if that documentation is correctly prepared and implemented, and the records generated thereof, then the entire flow, right from your documentation to generation of records, go in a very smooth pattern, and everything is on record. So creating records simultaneously, again, very, very important activity. Now, when you create a record from any document, from any SOP or from a QSP, please ensure that you are not only creating a record. Whenever you find any deviations in the record, any trends in the records, any gaps in the record, you have to take appropriate corrective actions. Because record is not something for purpose of records. Records we are generating for ensuring that everything is going in a proper way. And if there is anything which is a flaw, that has to be immediately corrected. And probably if you practice this, then you are ready for assessment at any given time. This usually don't happen with the laboratories for varied reasons. So coming to documentation, quickly go through what is the level of documentation that we expect. At the topmost, the level 1 is quality manual, which is based on various clauses and sub-clauses of ISO documents, which basically gives the laboratory policies and laboratory intents of performing those, implementing those quality clauses, ISO clauses in the laboratory. Based on the various policies the lab defines or documents in the quality manual, the laboratory has to prepare in detail the quality system procedures and standard operating procedures. These two terminologies almost go hand in hand, and many times people get confused what is a QSP and what is an SOP. I try to put it in a simple way. Anything that is required for quality management system, I put it under quality system procedures, and anything which is of a technical in nature, I put it under standard operating procedures. When you document a quality system procedure or a standard operating procedure, and when you follow this, there would be many times you will be generating data out of it. And to capture that data, you will have to capture the data in a systematic form. And for that, the lab should have very standard controlled forms or formats. Say, for example, a simple example, I want to record my daily temperature log. Laboratory temperature log I have to maintain. What time I'm going to maintain it? What is the acceptance criteria? What is the cutoff criteria? Everything should be available. What time? Who is going to take it? So your form should reflect and form should maintain that consistency of obtaining that data. And once you fill up that form, it automatically gets converted into a record. So right from quality manual, you derive various detailed quality system procedures and standard operating procedures. You define forms or format in which you are going to capture the record of the activities performed under QSP and SOP, which automatically become your record. I'm giving you, I've just narrated two examples. I'll take only one example, like 5.3.1.1 says, the lab shall have a documented procedure for selection, purchase, and management of equipment. It goes on. The quality manual says the laboratory has a documented procedure. That's a lab policy. It has a documented procedure for selection, purchase. When you have a procedure, that becomes a quality system procedure. So you should have a quality system procedure for selection, purchase, and management of equipment. This procedure should in detail describe what exactly your selection criteria, what are your purchase criteria, how are you going to manage the equipment, everything come into this. And whatever purchase documents will form the record of equipment purchase. But if you see 5.2.6, where you want to record the environmental temperatures and humidity, in this quality system procedures, for this quality system procedures, you are going to record temperature and humidity, you are going to record temperature of refrigerator, deep freezer, and so on. So you will have to prepare various log sheets, either in the form of forms, formats, digital, electronic format. You will have to design this. And once you start filling up this, it is almost going to create a record for you. So when the lead assessor comes to you, he or she basically goes through the quality management system. And there are so many components which are common to across all the disciplines. And the legal identity of the laboratory, which you already submit along with the application form. Please ensure that your laboratory director and quality manager, these two posts are fixed and the appointment orders are given to them and the job descriptions are defined. So these things are must. You have to ensure that your workload matches with the lab size that you have put up in the application form. There should not be disparity. The disciplines of various disciplines have to be nicely elaborated. Lab should, whatever quality policy lab has described in the quality manual, the quality policy has to be displayed at various locations in the lab, and the lab should be ready with various documents and records. In the quality management system, this is almost a checklist what all the lead assessor usually says. He will go through the service agreements and review of agreement. By and large, our service agreement is directly with the patient. So even a test requisition form becomes a service agreement. Only when the laboratories which go for B2B business who has clients, under those circumstances, the service agreements have to be properly filled up, signed by the both the parties, and have to be reviewed annually, and those records have to be maintained. Referral lab evaluation is one important thing lab has to do. But while doing referral lab evaluation, only saying, okay, this is my referral lab and I have evaluated it, has been working fine, it doesn't work. You have to have the selection criteria. Under by what criteria you have selected a referral lab, how have you evaluated the referral lab? When you have evaluated the referral lab, you have to maintain the records of referral lab evaluation, and you have to also show the records of sample sent to referral lab. Another thing the lead would see is vendor evaluation. Almost go hand in hand. Here it is referral lab, the second one is vendor evaluation. Same thing, selection criteria, evaluation, records, and so on. What is more important is complaints and feedback from user and staff. Mini labs, they will only have a complaint box. Having that complaint box, okay, sir, we have a complaint box, patient can give complaint, that does not work or does not achieve the objective. Receiving complaints from the users of the laboratory is an important function of the laboratory. Because unless and until you receive complaints, you will not be able to close your gaps. And so the lab should have a very, very positive intent, wherein the lab should be open to receive complaints. The complaint box should be nicely placed at a visible place. The complaint form should be easily available. If anything is required, it has to be addressed to the patient, and more patients should be encouraged to give complaints and feedback. Same applies with the staff feedback. Having this, getting 5 complaints, 10 complaints, that number is immaterial. Once you receive complaints and feedback, what is more important, what has been done with this data? Whether these complaints have been satisfactorily addressed, whatever has been raised by the customer, whether it has been rightly addressed, whether the customer is satisfied with it or not, and what has been done by the laboratory so that such incidences do not occur in future. All these forms complaint and feedback. Just keeping a record of complaints or feedback or even staff feedback is not sufficient. You have to go beyond that. You have to address them, and you have to take preventive actions so that such future incidences do not occur. Same true with non-conformances. This is something, deviations which occur in the laboratory on day-to-day basis. The staff, the assessor will see whether the staff has been encouraged to record non-conformances. Majority of the laboratories, raising a non-conformancy is taken as a complaint against that individual technical staff. So it is the duty of the laboratory director, the senior management person, to ensure that staff should not get threatened by the non-conformances, whether they are raised during on day-to-day activities or in the internal audit or even in the final NABL audit. In fact, that's a gap which is existing in the laboratory which needs to be addressed. And once it is recognized and once it is addressed, it is a permanent solution for the laboratory. By and large, such things do not get repeated. So laboratories should encourage the staff to find out more and more non-conformances. And once they are identified, appropriate corrective and preventive action has to be done so that they do not recur in future. And the records have to be maintained. Same applies with the NCs raised in previous NABL audit. Internal audit, of exhaustive internal audit is like a preliminary examination before you go for the final examination. And if that is done well, your chances of going through a very successful NABL audit increases almost 100%. This has to be done very, very in detail. And only many labs I have seen, what they will see, so this is our internal audit. These 4 NCs were raised, we have closed this is done. No, it doesn't work. The entire end-to-end data has to be provided. When was the notice for internal audit being placed? What was the audit schedule planned? Who was the auditor? Who was the auditee? What was the checklist used, whether it was lab checklist or the auditor's checklist? The checklist has to be enclosed. What are the NCs raised in the internal audit? How the lab took, what corrective actions lab took, what are the evidences lab has submitted, and whether the NCs have been successfully closed or not. So it has to go right from notice to the closure of NCs by the internal auditor. This entire document has to be a part of internal audit. And if this is done, I think you are free, like you can just appear for the NABL assessment and you will be through. Periodic review of requests and suitability of procedures and sample requirement, that is one additional thing. Risk assessment is one area which now many labs have started understanding it and implementing it. Earlier, like say 3-4 years back, it was a difficult thing for each one of them was to understand. But now each lab know what risk assessment is. But again, you have to have a proper quality system procedure for risk assessment form. It has to be done. The risks have to be identified. Once it is identified, the mitigation plan has to be there. What mitigation plan the lab is going to implement. The mitigation has to take place, and ultimately the lab should certify that the risks have been mitigated. So it has to be an end-to-end document. Quality indicators is a bird's eye view of what is going in the laboratory. This data is very, very vital. Just putting certain numbers in a tabular format or sometimes in a very colorful graphical presentation is not going to work. The objective is not that colorful diagram, but the objective is what quality indicators you have chosen, whether the lab has chosen the quality indicators which are actually required by the laboratory. Say, for example, you have a quality indicator as instrument breakdown. You are in the first year of the laboratory, you have the most high-end equipment, like you have purchased new high-end equipments, and you hardly have any equipment failure. Then this quality indicator is not going to work. Or you have a PT program which is once in 6 months. Now, this is not a program which can be monitored every month. So you have to have quality indicators which is going to monitor various aspects of the laboratory almost on a monthly basis. So identification of proper quality indicators, recording them, reviewing them, whether what is the data, what trend the data is showing, and whatever corrective actions are required, that needs to be implemented. So again, it becomes a very important end-to-end document. A good MRM after an internal audit is something which is required. And MRM covers almost all the points of the quality management system which I have discussed just now. And again, the MRM record has to go right from the notice of MRM, the agenda of the MRM, who are going to be the people who are going to attend, the attendance record of MRM, the minutes of the MRM, including follow-up actions of last MRM, what was decided in last MRM, what actions have been taken in the previous MRM, what were the various review inputs, review activities, and the output. This is one meeting in a year which is going to discuss the entire laboratory's operations, quality management system, and hence there has to be a proper preparation. When you are going for MRM, the quality manager, the technical manager, lab director has to be thoroughly prepared, presentation have to be made, entire data has to be tabulated, and that has to be presented to the MRM. And the output of the MRM, what decisions the MRM gives, has to be documented and they have to be implemented. So if these documents, these are the documents which usually a lead assessor sees, and if these documents are complete, I don't think there is any chance for any failure in your quality management system audit. Coming to clinical biochemistry, I really do not want to go clause-wise because it will vary from specialty to specialty, and I'm going to restrict myself to clinical biochemistry. Personal environmental condition, pre-examination processes, safety is at par with any other discipline. The challenge of biochemistry is huge scope. Any laboratory, if you see the scope of test, unless and it's a special microbiology laboratory or something like that. But if you go in a laboratory which has clinical pathology, hematology, microbiology, biochemistry, the maximum scope will come from biochemistry. The maximum number of equipments will be in biochemistry. Duplicate or triplicate equipments will be in biochemistry. The reagent inventory would be maximum in biochemistry. So these are challenges in biochemistry. What is the factor which is good for biochemistry? Majority of the biochemistry is automated. So there are no manual procedures now. Everything is automated. Thankfully, the industry has been working and giving us such a nice equipment that they give our equipment which produce a good accuracy and reliable results. So that part is very good. The problem is the workload and the scope. So the challenge in biochemistry lies with equipments. You have to have IQ, OK, and PQ of all the equipments. PQ is definitely a challenge in biochemistry because it's a huge cost and it's a time-taking activity. So many labs, they try to compromise on it. If they have a performance qualification, if they have 40 tests in the scope, they will only do 5 as a test as performance qualification. Instead of 20 runs, they will compromise on 5 runs and so on and so forth. But this is something, a challenge which need to be addressed and which has to be effectively done. If we have more than one equipment, then inter-instrument comparison becomes mandatory requirement. And when you are doing inter-instrument comparison, the challenge is what would be your acceptance criteria. Now, Minilab randomly put it as plus or minus 10%. Now, even the new NABL 112 has accepted plus or minus 10%, or sometimes plus or minus 2% CV. So that variation is there between lab to lab. I think somewhere it has to come to a common platform. Plus or minus 10%, again, I feel it is a very large variation which we are taking it for acceptance. There are two major challenges for biochemistry. One, I said, is the test validation or verification, and the second one is quality control. If these two things are done, biochemistry would be smooth. Now, test validation, we really don't have to do routine tests. All tests are validated by the manufacturers. What we have to do is verification. But when it comes to verification, there are so many number of accuracy, precision, linearity, interfering substances, measuring interval, reportable range, PRI, critical alerts. What is challenging for me is accuracy and linearity. These two things pose a challenge because majority of the labs, they use the same material, the QC material for accuracy testing, which in my personal capacity, which I would like to say should not, is an incorrect thing. Maybe Dr. Barnali can enlighten on this, but I prefer that traceable material, a calibrator of another make can be used for accuracy study because that's a traceable material. Linearity is again a very expensive exercise because we do not go for linearity controls. They are very expensive controls. And these are the two areas which I think is a difficult challenge in biochemistry. A good quality control program is a must Detailed quality control program has to be documented. Lab defined mean, SD percent, CV, LJs have to be plotted on day-to-day basis. Outliers have to be identified and effective action have to be taken. What are the challenges here? Say, for example, I have got 3 immunoassays. Now, 3 immunoassays, I'm going to run on 3 immunoassays. I'm going to get 3 different mean, 3 different SD, 3 different CVs. Is it possible for any lab to say, okay, on this machine, this is the outlier, on this machine, this is the outlier? This is something which needs to be addressed. Or should we go for a mean and SD, which is going to go across all 3 equipments? So that's the major challenge which I feel over there. ECAS, fortunately, I don't think there is any challenge in ECAS or interlab comparison. But yes, IQC is a big challenge in biochemistry. Plotting so many LJs, even if they get plotted automatically using the software, identifying the outliers, effective corrective action is always a challenge in biochemistry. So friends, apart from the quality management system which are discussed for biochemistry, focus has to be on a proper performance qualification. Focus has to be a proper quality control program. And I think that is the one which will take the laboratory to this, which we all feel the status of enable accreditation. Thank you so much.